It's been 1 year on this website. Oh yeah. Man, it's been 1 year. I can barely believe it myself. But it's true. It's true, man. 7th of September 2015 is when it's all started. So long ago, while I was still working on the map, and man, look at it now. Look at it now. I remarked it last week as well that we're really getting up there, but it didn't really hit home until I started working on the Westerlands, which was, it seemed so far away for so long. It's kind of like Witch Blossom in a lot of ways. It's kind of got that lower, almost kind of folksy country kind of feel to it, but it wasn't exactly like Witch Blossom, because Witch Blossom was always a little bit more somber. It was a little bit more romantic, more kind of prissy and artsy, and eventually it ended up being a little bit more urbanized than the Westerlands design was. So what I wanted to do with the Westerlands right here was not deviate from the original design by actually making it into a very small rural sort of community. I like it. It kind of differs things up. There's just one thing about this whole ordeal here, is that first of all, I wanted to give it a sense of at least some space, because the area that I'm working with is, as you've probably seen, really small. It's really small, but you know, I don't really have much else to do. I gotta work it in, so there's a lot of detail work just to make this area feel a lot bigger. Plus, with the beyond the border, across the line mod, I don't know why I said across the line mod, which I'm using right now, I'm actually able to go beyond the city borders, or the city limits, so I can edit some of the parts here again, which is really helpful because it kind of ties into the illusion that the map doesn't just end at an arbitrary point, but rather it continues on. And that's something that I really tried to work with here, just to give it a less gamey feel, because there could be a potential pretty big problem where everything just stops after a certain line, but at this point I'm actually able to kind of make these two areas blend in, the Hinter Westerlands and the Westerlands little city, or I don't know, it's more like a village really. The Westerlands is really kind of interesting anyway. It's sort of where the hinterlands of the big city of Scepterpan City, where all the farmland is, kind of connects with the actual city, but hasn't really fully transitioned into it because it's divided, or at least sectioned off from it because of the waterfall, which is right next to both the Westerlands and Avicenna Avenues, and the connection there is pretty bad, because essentially I didn't want to put a bridge in front of a natural wonder. I'm sure that a lot of people want to take pictures in front of it, so you know, Westerlands, Witch Blossom, similar, start with a W, but they both have their own little issues and quirks. Badland connection here, kind of make it different. So how about adding a factory and, you know, maybe another song?
I sit here writing, never knowing what to say. These feelings always come to me like air. I'm one of the million other writers in LA, lost and lonely, looking for a place. Trouble will come, it'll be okay. Martha the girl, always happy with her work, was told she only had 4 weeks to live. Never knowing pain or a heart that could be vain, she drew inside and hung out with herself. Trouble will come, it'll be okay. Alfred the dude, who is caught up being rude, took his jokes and traveled across the state, hoping that his crowd would double and he'd be proud. He quickly learned he couldn't fill a seat. Trouble will come, it'll be okay. keeps making her stay late, even though her house is full of kids. I am her child, and my heart is growing wild. I do not know how this bad seed will grow. Trouble will come, it'll be okay. My father died, I was only 3 years old. Oh, sure to grow up negative and cold. I never let my father's passing guide my fate. I took his life and death and became great. Trouble will come, it'll be okay. Trouble will come, it'll be okay.
Oh man, I don't want to click anymore. I decided to get the prop line tool. I've seen everybody use the prop line tool. Thing is, see right there, it doesn't work outside of the city limits. I hope they add that at some point, because it would have saved me a lot of work. Because about half a year ago, what people would usually do to do the outskirts of towns, they would just use the resource tool. You know how the resource tool works. It's you select the iron, you spray paint it onto the map, and the grass looks kind of gray. Gives you a different texture. Well, a different color, not much of a texture, really. You use the farmland. It gets this electric green that looks like baby puke, and so on and so forth. You have the oil field, which is kind of brownish, which kind of works, but it doesn't give you any kind of real sense of texture, like there's any kind of shrubbery or maybe just grain. Like, you don't even have the color for grain. I mean, I didn't want that. So instead I wanted to use the actual wheats that we have here, so that you get a little bit more of that texture, even though you're not necessarily supposed to look at this area of the map, which kind of blends in with the original game design as well. Simply because I cannot really move far beyond the city limits anyway. But there's the thing with the fog that the game sets up. It actually sets up fog at the borders of the map, which emit blue fog, kind of like a painting, to give this false sense of perspective. It does the same thing here. So even if I were to use the resource tool, the colors that I would have used, that I would have gotten from that tool, would have completely been diminished. So that was a no-go. So instead, it's going to be a lot of tedious work, but we can actually add a lot more details, like creating these little farmhouses with the lovely update, as well as the more beautification mod right here, adding some nice little props all around, give it some more unique feeling, maybe something for not necessarily a big city tourist, but hikers.
You gotta know, it looks so easy. Everybody gets along, but I'm not sure that I will find my spot. Yeah, I'm not sure that I will not be lost when the time comes. I believe that's what you meant to me. I'm only awake when you call my name, when you call my name out loud. and I'm not sure how you make it look so easy. Every morning when I am at my weakest, when I'm my own worst enemy, when I'm my own worst enemy. Why'd it get so still before I gotta move? Placing all my chips on a sober trip. Why'd it get so still before I gotta move? Placing all my chips on a sober trip. Why'd it get so still before I gotta move? Placing all my chips on a sober trip. Why does it get so still before I gotta move?
So here we are, we have another lighthouse here. Of course, on either ends of the map, we have Witch Blossom and Westerlands. A lot of parallels on purpose, actually. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I don't really have much time, but lighthouses. Lighthouses, of course, being extremely important to the entire city because, I mean, look at the area. It's completely mountainous, even though there are a lot of volcanoes, you might argue, so there's got to be some fertile land, sure, but it's too mountainous to really have intensive agriculture, so that was never going to work. So instead, I think that Scepterpan City would have been very... naval driven, let's say. It would have to have ships just to get its nutrition, which makes sense to me. And here we have another similarity with Witch Blossom, even though it's more extreme and more pronounced here as well, is that there's a two-layer system going on here. I don't really quite like flatness. It makes the map feel really small in a lot of ways because you can just look over everything. Not good. Plus, it's not very interesting to look at, just to have flatness. So again, we have some mountainous areas, and of course, the centerpiece, as always, has to be a church in my mind. Now, it turned out that the Varna Cathedral, which I'm using here, doesn't have any lights, so I wanted to add some yellow lights, which I've not really used for any other cathedral yet. So that's unique in a lot of ways, and it kind of looks like a mission, like a missionary a church. So I kind of think that's interesting. Plus, it has the domes again, so it ties into the whole Avicenna area as well. Pretty sweet.
Ready for disc and harrow, where the mountains were made low, planted in what we wanted to say. There were words we missed in our cars alone. Come back when we were gone, like moth to porch light. Oh, I reached, but I did not sow. I shook and I fell out of this place. I starved and dead. Lost colors ready for disc and harrow. Wales mountains were made low, planted in what we wanted to see. They were colors we missed in our cars alone. Come back when we were gone, when our eyes were closed. Oh, I read what I did not sow. I shook it out down this place. Oh, I read what I did not sow. I shook it out down this place.
Asked this boy to marry me, and he dug up that diamond ring. We're gonna settle down. We're gonna settle down. Man, I don't like that song at all. Wow. Okay, Westerlands. Now, you might have some questions, which are reasonable. Westerlands, of course, it's connected to farmland. We've been talking about that. But how far does that farmland go? That's a good question. I've never actually talked about that. It's very easy to think of Scepterpan City as its own little microcosm. I mean, that's the way the game is set up. You know, there's no neighboring cities. I mean, technically, we can imagine that the cars that spawn out of the blue fogs of the blue hell that is at the edge or at the city borders, you know, at the far city borders of the map, or they just come out of some city that has some name attached to it, or a tourist is just from some random country, perhaps one of the flags that we just saw on the Varna Cathedral, or the Christian Mission, as it's now called in game. But you know, it feels so shallow. What about the planes? Where do they come from? Do they come away from all around the globe after lots of travel of many woes and destinies, different continents, other cities, perhaps just simply that? What about the boats? I mean, there you go, a couple going up north. What is up north? Well, that's a very good question that I've been trying to not answer for a very long time, including this time, because now I've been taking about almost 2 minutes of your time just to try and explain that. What is up north? I'm not going to say it's a good question again. I indirectly did it. But what's up north is actually the second city that I want to do for the second series. Now, I'm not going to spoil the name on it just yet, but as I've said in many episodes, notably the Royal Court, which I talk a little bit about the history of Scepterpan City. Scepterpan City, of course, for a very long time, independent city, has a lot of really good properties for, in olden days when you didn't really need to have big populations, or it was very uncommon to have big populations. Soils like the ones in Marquesia, Dugsburg, Witch Blossom again, and of course the oldest being in Raffia Strip, with an extremely potent and rich river delta, could have allowed, sustained, and basically accommodated small pockets of population that would have been able to work the mines of Scepterpan City, creating all sorts of gems and metals, obsidian stone, etc. Over the course of history, that's all been diminished, and the power of Scepterpan City has dwindled, and it slowly became part of this bigger country. And in doing so, it also merged into the district with the city up north. At least they had to divide their hinterlands, as it were, the actual farmland that supplies these cities with their much needed sustenance in order to make them, of course, still existent. Now, that's the interesting part, because right up north is that other city that I was talking about, and feels pretty good. I don't know just how far, or if I'm going to make the map seem familiar to Scepterpan. I can definitely try and work something like that in. But it's just interesting to think about that they're kind of on the same grid anyway, isn't it? It's pretty nice, pretty nifty, pretty cool, pretty shifty. Furthermore, Westerlands, of course, now being completely united with this area, also has quite an optimal location for the cities from up north to actually transport their goods via the Westerlands, because historically it has had a pretty good location. The salt pan completely unusable, and it was part of the first rail line. Priest Ridge didn't have anything. That's where the monks were, after all. Details into this area of the outskirts here of the Westerlands. Kind of hard because I don't really have all that much to work with. If I download any more buildings, my game is going to explode. So I'm trying to make use of the items that I already have, adding in some different kinds of colors like this, kind of like a gradient. Trying to not really run into patterns all too much, because that would of course be very glaring. So I'm trying to work with it. Basically, because it's an area that is technically out of sight, I still want to give it a unique character, that every little plot of land actually looks somewhat different from the other one. So, nice little touches of flair, but nothing that's too eye-catching or too out of the ordinary. And just something to really give Scepterpan City its own needed space for the outskirts, as well as some identity for all the lots that are inside of there. So, hey, that's something to keep in mind.
So I set my life to a deck of cards, never knowing what I want. It ain't half as bad. So I set my line to the center point, never knowing what I want. It ain't half as bad. And I paint myself in the only things I ever wanted. I paint myself in the only things I ever wanted. So I fell in love with a friend of mine. She don't know that she's on my mind. It ain't half as bad. And I wanted more, but she couldn't care less. The things I said under duress. It ain't half as bad. And I paint myself with the only things I ever wanted. I paint myself with the only things I ever wanted. Be what you will, be what you will. I am lonely enough to love you. Be what you will, be what you will. I am lonely enough to love you. Be what you will, be what you will. I am lonely enough to love you. Be what you will, be what you will. I am lonely enough to love you. Deal my deck of cards for you. Deal my deck of cards for you. And slow my roll for you. Stop my waiting. It ain't half as bad.
Creating some of that beautiful crevasse. Oh, wait. Hey, this sounds a little similar.
In the summertime, when the weather is fine, you can get right up and touch the sky. When the weather is fine, you got women on your mind.
That's some Mungo Jerry inspired stuff. I gotta swear by that, because that sounds almost exactly alike. Anyway, here we are. Again, trying to get some unique flavor for the area, as well as the thing that I mentioned about the hikers. I want people to climb these mountains because, of course, you're looking at them all day if you're on vacation here, and you might want to actually see what's up in them. So I thought, people like to go to caves. Now, I'm personally extremely claustrophobic, so I hate this kind of stuff. But I thought, what about having like this little cavernous, almost like a valley sort of thing? Kind of reminds me of something that you would see in, let's say, Dragon Age Inquisition, something in the hinterlands, actually, where you have this, I think there's like a, whatever, never mind, it's somewhere on the east side of the map, the hinterlands in Dragon Age Inquisition. You sort of have something like this, like a quarry that was never really quite opened up to any type of construction. It was rather kept or preserved in its natural state. And, it's pretty interesting to have a nice little cave there. So you might want to go looking in there. Maybe they got some of the crystals or the gems that I mentioned in the previous segment as well. So it's got some nice stuff. Now, we're going up here on this area. I wasn't really sure what to do here because it's a little bit small and we got pretty steep cliffs. Nevertheless, I really wanted to add in some more color because this area just feels a little dry if I don't actually do anything with it. So I also decided to add some different types of wheats here, just to give it a little bit more, I don't know, some color, because really all this area is going to be used for is just people to look over beyond the mountains of the Westerlands, see over the hill, and just say, oh, there's something over there, and then you never really look at it again. But if there's nothing there, it's just gonna look empty. I mean, we've been looking at it for 50 episodes now, and I can attest to it, and you probably can as well, that it seems a little plain once it gets beyond the city limits. So that's exactly why I did that. Again, adding in some different colors, kind of like a complementary orange-green thing. Of course, orange and red being complementary colors, kind of make it pop out in a lot of ways, working with different types of shades of the lightness and some of the colors. I wish there was a little bit more of a dynamic really in these colors, or that some of them stuck out a little bit more from the ground, because sometimes they blend in a little bit too well for their own sake, especially with the problem with the blue fog, which dilutes every single color. Oh man, I gotta listen to that song after I'm done doing this. Man, you like that song? I really like that type of stuff. I listen to that kind of music almost every day, that kind of sort of 60s, 70s kind of stuff. Absolutely fantastic. You ever seen Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino in it? It really reminds me of that song for some reason. I don't know, it's made of white collars.
Look at all the seven, wanna come by and show her there's more than awful out here. If you understand me, you have got to meet the total misinformed. Well, what could that mean? If you wanna say hi, if you want us to be like you, a light blue goddess of frost. Yes, it's wonderful. At the carnival it's open. Oh yes, it's open. Why don't you just come around, see the show, make up your mind and lose control. Come right in, bring a friend, as it's always been. Come and save her. What a forthright way to soak in the misfortune, son, you are in. You can have it all now. You can hope for an illusion of every single thing you wanted to come alive and take control. Lose your appetite, it's too powerful. Breathe in angst and then stormy life unroll. So you want a way out, babe, you left along the courtyard and the open sunlit garden. You can undermine me and we can cut a little time loose for everyone who's wanting to go. Bitter pill you swallow, no one runs from any showgirl. It's the whole world lasting another day. Yes, it's wonderful when you don't control all that. It's just falling right into place. Common sense, it's a lie. It's so off-base, you lose your mind. Everyone else take some pride in the ways their eyes are.
Yeah, it turns out it's really hard to spell Westerlands in small little circular flower palettes. So again, we're opting for Scepterpan City as really kind of a nice hello to all the people who are going out and perhaps coming in. And I decided to apply some new techniques to it as well, but you'll see that in a second. I hope you're gonna like that. Here we go. Adding lights to flowers. I've never done this. One thing that always bothered me about the Bismillah that we have in the airport episode, in the international airport of Scepterpan City, it's a really big flower mural. No, not a mural, but it's kind of like this flower bed. The problem is at night it's just dark and you can't see the middle of it anymore, so I decided to add some lights in here. I'm going to retroactively add them as well in the airport area, just to, oh man, it's, now that I got this new mod, the more beautification, it's so helpful to have that. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention about the farms before I got a little distracted with the whole Mungo Jerry thing is you guys really seem to like the historical things that I was talking about, and usually I try to incorporate something that I know from history, or at least I've seen somewhere in a history book, or something that makes logical sense to me and based off of examples in the past anyway. So the ways that I try to divide up the farmland here, usually you see that farmland is always very rigidly square-like. Even in my country that used to be the case. I wanted to go for a little bit more terrain, of course, that is not entirely flat, which is something that you again would have in France. France, the beautiful country that I always mention in every single episode because I based the city off of Paris. But again, something in France, historically speaking, you might remember the feudal system, which technically the feudal system that we know of or that we're taught in school is completely inaccurate. It only applies to France, really, but whatever. For my example, it still works, and it's just a little asterisk on there, just a little asterisk. But for feudal succession, so the king dies, you know, who's going to be the successor? In the times of Charlemagne, it would just be divvied up among all of his sons. In the times of the Merovingian lords, same thing goes. So what does that mean? Every time a ruler dies, even if he hasn't ruled for very long and he has amassed a lot of territory, all of the territory gets split among all of his male descendants. After a while, this was only done to one heir, but before then, that was not the case. And in a rural law, which was usually governed by lords, this was actually preserved for a very long time. So what would you have is that the father would pass on land to all of his sons, and after a while, people would only have very small stretches of land, which were almost you could barely reap a profit off of it. And how was that solved? Again, the Black Death and the machines that I mentioned in the last episode. Oh yeah, we got the tie in Avicenna. Remember the machines, they helped out a lot with farming and propelled the modern age. So again, thank China. So this has been the Westerlands, and we got one more cinematic song coming up by Karen Ellis. So I hope you're going to enjoy that.
There's always a reason, isn't there? Love came down from the trees for something so pleasing. How is it love has such gravity? Me on the street and you on the balcony, 10 stories up and climbing. You're rhyming off reasons without ever answering. What once was so easy at the start of it you gave so willingly. But for the seasons that weathered your heart and took you from me on the street, and you on the balcony, 10 stories up and climbing. You're rhyming off reasons without ever answering. Why do we need it to be so healthy? Why do we need it to be so healthy? Why do we need it to be so healthy? Rhyming off reasons without ever answering. Me on the street and you on the balcony, 10 stories up and climbing. You're rhyming off reasons without ever answering. Why do we need it to be so healthy? Why do we need it to be so healthy? Why do we need it to be so healthy? Rhyming off reasons without ever answering.
'Cause if you like the way you look that much, baby, you should go and love yourself.
I think that's the same key. That's been bothering me the entire time I was listening to that song. Man, I don't know. What do you think? What are you thinking right now? You're sitting there looking at me. Well, not looking at the video, of course, and got all sorts of thoughts rumbling about like a thunder storming in your head. And I've been sincerely wondering, what the hell is going up on there in that cranium of yours, that cerebral portion of your psyche. Perhaps your psyche is just your entire brain, but that's neither here nor there. Let me just say that if you have any suggestions, which is really the point of what I'm trying to go to here, if you have any suggestions on, what I could improve, perhaps which would like to see for the last episode, which we're going to do next week. Yes, there's another area that I didn't touch upon, and you're just going to have to see where it is. It's going to be pretty fun, and I hope to see you there as well. But if you have any suggestions for that area, or perhaps for the second series, if you have seen any kind of building, you say like, "Ooh, that's a really good building. I haven't seen anybody use that in a very significant way. Maybe that boy, that annoying boy with his stupid voices that sings songs through halfway of his videos and never really gets to the point of his sentences and barely even finish them half the time, and has so many commas in them that I lose track of what he's saying. You could always refer to me. That's period. God damn. But just saying. So if you have any suggestions or just recommendations, let me know. If shout out anybody you want to shout out, and then on to the second part of this little ending that we hear, the outro. I would like to say thank you very much, sincerely and from the heart, for watching. Really does mean a lot to me that you guys really tough it out until the end of the episode. I hope it stays in like interesting throughout. This one might have been a little sluggish because the area isn't nearly as intensive as Eversen Avenues, as it's just a lot of busy work and detail work, not necessarily for areas that we're going to see a lot of anyway. So I hope that wasn't too big of a problem. I just really wanted to get some crisp character in here, some crisp character with some, details that get fuzzier in the background. Again, like a painting. That's why I did the square so shitty in the end. It's not me making up excuses. But I hope to see you next week.